Good morning, everybody. As Jeremy said, I'm the campaign manager for Driving for Better Business, and I thought I would just give you a little potted history of where Driving for Better Business came from to start with. Now, it was originally conceived out of some research that the Department for Transport did. At the turn of the millennium in 2000, there was about 3,000 fatalities on the British road network. And at that time, the government even then knew that roughly a third of those involved someone who was driving for work. So they commissioned some research to see how best to engage with employers and fleet operators to try and get them to take something that we now call work-related road risk or occupational road risk, to try and get them to take that more seriously and to improve the standards of management when it comes to drivers and vehicles. And out of that research came a report from the Motorist Forum that recommended, in order to engage with operators and fleets, you had to engage with them on a business level using business language and business examples, which seems fairly obvious, but it wasn't being done at the time. Typical health and safety at work messages often would fall quite some way down the list of priorities for business owners who were more concerned with getting money in to pay staff and keeping the business running. Now, I think we've made a lot of progress over the last 20 years since that research was done, and I think most businesses now take a much deeper view as far as employee well-being and health and safety goes. So driver risk does occupy a much more prominent spot on that list of priorities. But out of that research, the DFT founded Driving for Better Business. So that it was founded in 2007 with the specific objective of engaging employers and sharing good practice by way of case studies and examples to show how companies that did it well, what they've done and what they'd achieved, specifically business benefits in terms of performance improvements that come directly from managing drivers better and reducing the level of incidents. Because if you can reduce the level of incidents, you generally reduce lots of other costs in the business as well, such as fleet insurance, excess payments. You then start to see improvements in costs for servicing and maintenance and fuel use and all of that kind of thing. So Driving for Better Business now is celebrating its 15th year today, not today, this year. It's been going 15 years, and it's now under the been under the control of what was Highways England, now National Highways, since 2015. We're fully funded by National Highways, and this is a question I get asked by nearly every fleet operator that we engage with, is, well, what do I have to pay for? Surely I have to pay to join. Surely I've got to pay to get some of the resources that you do. No, I'm not here to sell you anything. It's a free to access program to help you manage work-related road risk. So I'm going to go through a few slides now to explain where that risk lies and some of the resources that we can provide to help you manage that. So there we go, to help you reduce work-related road risk and improve operational efficiency, and it's free. So the first thing is, what actually is work-related road risk? Many fleets, especially those with smaller fleets where maybe the people responsible for managing driver risk don't fully understand what that is, but essentially it boils down to the risk that one of your drivers or one of your employees could have an incident, be involved in a crash while they're driving for work, with the obvious consequences that they could injure themselves or others, or they could just cause some damage to vehicles or other property. Now, many of us think that's never going to happen to us, but one of the things I'd just like you to have a think about is the odds of this happening. So many of us, I'm sure, either do or have done in the past the National Lottery. Just have a think to yourself what the odds of winning the National Lottery jackpot are. Do any of you know what the actual figure is for that? You do?
Very slim.
The odds of winning the National Lottery jackpot, according to their own website, is 1 in 45 million. And yet, millions of us sit at home watching the telly every week thinking, do you know what, that might be me this week. It's not going to be you this week. The odds of being involved in a work-related injury collision are 1 in 500. And yet, we all go about our business on the roads thinking it's never going to be us. So, a couple of the partners we work with, IAM RoadSmart, a couple of years ago they surveyed their corporate fleets to find out which of them had had collisions in the last 12 months. And they found that 86% of those fleets had collisions in the last 12 months. DriveTech, which is the AA's fleet driver training arm, they surveyed their fleet customers about which ones expected to have collisions in the coming 12 months. And 65% of them what they found was they expected 65% of their vehicles to incur some damage in the following 12 months. And out of that 65%, nearly half of them, so 30% of the total, would require some time off road to be fixed. So what we're looking at there is the amount of disruption to the business operations from not managing those drivers properly and incurring that level of incident. So this leads to where I get the 1 in 500 figure from. The government statistics show that there are around 40,000 injury collisions every year involving someone who drives for work. Now that has a massive cost to UK PLC, but we also know that 40,000 figure is hugely unreported. I've seen reports that maybe only 20% of incidents that happen, the police ask what the journey purpose was, and that's where those 40,000 statistics come from. So we're fairly sure that's significantly underreported. And there are actually around 20 million vehicles in the UK used on business. In very rough terms, it's about 500,000 trucks, 4.5 million vans, just under 1 million company cars, and about 14 million cars that are privately owned, used by employees for business. They're what we call grey fleet. So if you divide 40,000 injury collisions into 20 million vehicles, that's 1 in 500. So if you're running a fleet of 500 vehicles, there's a very good possibility one of those is going to be involved in an injury collision during the year. And then, of course, we've got probably millions of other incidents that are just damage only. So your legal responsibilities for managing that generally fall under the Health and Safety at Work Act. I know sort of 10, 15 years ago there was a lot of talk about corporate manslaughter. In reality, the sort of people who are here in this room are probably not going to be at risk from that. It's generally aimed at people who are willfully negligent. If you're making some effort to try and manage it, you might not be doing all you need to do and it might still go wrong, but the general chances are you will probably end up being investigated and prosecuted under the Health and Safety at Work regs. There are 4 sections you need to be aware of with that. Section 2 is basically your responsibility, your duty of care to your own staff, so in this case that's drivers. Section 3 is your responsibility to the general public, so in our case this would be other road users. Section 7 is an individual responsibility. Every person in the business is directly responsible for following established procedures that have been laid down. And Section 37 is management's responsibility to put those procedures in place. Now that's all laid down in health and safety legislation. Previously there was a document actually titled INDG 382, which many of us would use as a Bible. It was a downloadable PDF, but that's now been updated into a dynamic website by the HSE, so you can go on that website there and get a lot of guidance as well direct from the HSE. Now I just want to spend 5 minutes looking at where risk lies in a transport movement or in your business operations, because commonly we just think it's when the guy's out on the road. But basically the risk starts from the moment you recruit someone to drive for work. Are they eligible to drive? Have they got a licence? Have you checked that licence with DVLA? Do you know how many points they've got on the licence? Have they got any medical issues that you might need to manage? And one bit of research I did a couple of years ago which brought that into focus. Most of us, I'm sure, know that at 12 penalty points on your licence, you should go to court and probably have that suspended for a period of time. But currently, although it's trying to be got rid of at the moment, there's an argument called undue hardship, where you can go and stand in front of, your driver can go and stand in front of a judge and claim that having his licence revoked is going to cause him undue hardship, and he should be allowed to continue with 12 or more points on his licence. Now, I don't know how many of you understand how many people are driving in the UK with more than 12 points. It's around about 10,000, just under, people driving legally with more than 12 points on their licence. When I first started looking at this in 2014, there was a record of 54 points. The guy was legally driving. I'll come back to that in a second, but currently I think the record is, it's either 68 or 72. I think there's a guy currently who has 68 points on his licence and still driving. But the first time I came across this in 2014, a guy who was convinced a judge to let him drive on with 54 points in order to look for work. And the work he was looking for was as a mobile tyre fitter. So he was going around trying to convince employers to give him a £40,000 van full of kit so that he could drive, I don't know, 20, 30, 40,000 miles a year to customers' houses fitting tyres. You do not want people like that working for your business. Now, of course, if they are eligible, they need to be fit to drive. They need to be properly rested. They need to be free of drink and drug impairment, that kind of thing. Vehicle roadworthiness. Now, especially with vans, they all need to be checked, certainly daily, before they go out on a job. If you've got a van working 24/7 with shifts of drivers using the same vehicle, it should have a full walk-round check at the start of each shift. And those safety, any defects that are reported need to be acted on. If they're not safety critical, they need to be fixed at the earliest opportunity. If they are safety critical, you stand the van down until it's fixed. Arriving for work. So sometimes you guys might have vans, might be based at home, others might be coming into the depot to pick up a vehicle. You've got people-vehicle interface issues in the depot, so have you got the appropriate signage? Are you segregating other employees or members of the public from any vehicles that are moving around? A lot of the nastiest incidents the HSE have to deal with are people getting squished by vehicles in loading bays, so that's a key one to look at. Loading vehicles is a really significant problem, as I'm sure many of you know. A van has a certain amount of space in it. That doesn't mean you can fill it. It's very easy to overload it. It's very easy for it to be flying around inside the vehicle. And if it's a multi-drop vehicle full of stuff, it's very easy for that to become unstable during the day and for centre of gravity to become too high. And we know fleets that suffer from rollover issues partway through the day because the centre of gravity's changed. Work instructions is another major one. Giving your drivers an unrealistic expectation of what they're to achieve during the day, whether it's hundreds of drops with no allowance for rest breaks or heavy traffic or roadworks or whatever, so that they're either racing and speeding to get to the next drop, or they're working excessive hours to complete the work route. There's another issue with company cars on that, probably more in line with sales team, where remuneration packages can come into play, because if you have a largely bonus-driven sales team, that can encourage them to get more meetings in, to work longer throughout the day, and again, speeding and fatigue can start to set in. That can be an aggravating factor in an accident if your financial structure incentivises drivers to take risks and work longer hours. If that's okay, we're now on the road, so we're on the journey. So it's obviously, we're expecting them to follow the highway code, which isn't guidance, it is a quasi-legal document, they have to follow it. So that covers things like mobile phone use, phone distraction, keeping to speed limits, which, as we know with vans, not always the same as cars. So have you trained your drivers well enough that they understand those differences and they're following the highway code and traffic law? And not doing the example that Mark outlined earlier, with where they're getting a bit of road rage and giving all the hand signals to other road users and causing your business potentially some reputational damage. Number 8, at the customer. Now that's potentially similar issues to number 4, when they're arriving at work at the depot. Are they going to a customer's depot? So you've got similar issues around vehicle-people interface. But are they doing drops at customers where maybe they're parked at the side of the road? So you've got pedestrians coming into it and pavements, or tight manoeuvring where pedestrians involved. Again, there's many instances where vehicles have injured pedestrians in manoeuvring outside customers' premises. And lastly, in an emergency, have all your drivers been trained on what to do? I mean, from a key business perspective, many of you may have accident management companies who I'm sure want the drivers to contact them at the earliest opportunity, and they'll handhold those drivers through that procedure. But your drivers are going to panic. If they have a serious incident, they're probably going to forget a lot of what they've been taught as to what to do in an incident. Mark's idea of the app, that seems like a really good idea. Make sure they're trained properly so that they go calmly through what they need to do and keep themselves safe as well as any others at the scene. Now, what I want you to take away mainly from this is, out of those 9 points, we only really got on the road at point 7. Most of those areas of risk are your responsibility to manage policies and procedures and train drivers so that everybody knows what they should be doing. There's a lot of areas of risk to manage, not just the bit where they're on the road. So what you need to do in a nutshell is understand your responsibilities and ensure everybody else in the business does as well, especially senior leaders, right the way down to drivers and any work schedulers. Communicate that through an effective driving for work policy. We've got guides on the Driving for Better Business website that'll help you with that. Make sure you've got full driver checking systems in place and that you check licences, driver eligibility. You must have a full defect management system in place for vehicles to minimise the chance of them going out in an unroadworthy condition, and do all of that on an ongoing basis. Driver wellbeing is another key thing. I think we've got to talk later on, which will cover some of that. But it doesn't matter whether you've done any of that unless you can prove it. So accurate record keeping and reporting is absolutely essential for that. And reporting metrics and trends up to the board. Your board should be interested in what you're doing. They should be monitoring trends, giving you the support to deal with that, with all of those issues as well. And good record keeping and reporting will help you talk to them and get them supportive of you. So the Driving for Better Business website now has a new portal through which, if you sign up to that, it will help you go through what we've designed as a 7-step framework to help you manage all of these and fill in any gaps. Essentially, if you sign up to start with, we've got some downloadable resources that you can share with colleagues so that they're all on board and they understand the issues to the same level you do. Having been to a conference such as this today, it'll outline some of the key points we've mentioned. We've got what I call the circle of continuous improvement in the middle, which is basically understanding where your gaps are, setting a baseline, filling those gaps by sharing resources and improving policies and procedures, and then enhancing by performance by keep measuring and monitoring what you're doing and seeing what works and what doesn't, and then going around that circle again so that you continue to improve. Demonstrating leadership is about ensuring you've got top-down commitment that everybody in your business understands. So that might be a statement from the CEO or the MD that you're happy to share, possibly put in your Driving for Work handbook as well, share with the drivers. And then lastly, it's about inspiring others. And that's about, once you've done that well, share that story so others can learn from it. That's essentially what Driving for Better Business was built on. Case studies and stories of companies that do it well and the benefits they've seen and the achievements they've made, and sharing those stories to inspire others. Now, just quickly going to go through 2 resources that we've got that can help you do that. So the first is a collaboration we did with the Campaign Against Living Miserably, suicide prevention charity. That's a physical pack that we have funded in conjunction with Mark's team at the Mark's Commercial Vehicle team. It's a physical pack of window stickers, an A5 information sheet that can go in the glove box, and a couple of internal stickers. Your drivers largely are probably almost classed as lone workers. And if they've got any issues, it's very difficult for them to find people to talk to. They might have very limited interaction with others. That's getting details of helplines and resources that they can access right when they need it most, when they've been on the road for 10 or 12 hours and they're really feeling they don't want to do this anymore. That's a free pack. You can go to the website there, register those, and we'll send you some out to go in your vehicles. Which did win a Fleet News Award for Best Product last year. We won the same award again this year for our Van Driver Toolkit, which is now up to about 35 themes. And this is a series of driver safety cards. They're in a number of different formats, each covering a different issue, whether it's driver fatigue, phone distraction, speeding, vehicle roadworthiness. As I say, there's about 35 of those. You can download those and share them with your drivers. We've also got them on web page versions and animated videos, so you can share them, send links to them on their devices. They can watch them on that. We've also got a version of PDFs. If any of you use vehicle checking apps, you can download a full set that will go in the CheckSafe or FleetSafe apps, so you can access those as well. So all of those are free. We're adding to this constantly. We've just updated it for the new mobile phone penalties to take account of those and a couple of other issues as well. So we're keeping it updated and we're adding new resources to that all the time. So that's essentially Driving for Better Business. It's a free campaign, free resources. Go and sign up to the portal. You can share all of those resources with your drivers through that portal as well. And it'll help you track your progress through our 7-step framework. That's me. Feel free to email me if you've got any queries afterwards. You can follow the campaign and me on LinkedIn. We share a lot of the stuff on LinkedIn, but that's my presentation done. Thank you very much for your time.
Fantastic. And since Driving for Better Business is a recipient of a Prince Michael of Kent International Road Safety Award, it's an effortless segue into our next presentation. So His Royal Highness couldn't be with us today, but he has taken the time out to prepare a presentation for us, and I'd just like to run that now.
Commercial road transport plays a vital part in the economy of every country. Those who drive for a living contribute hugely to society. But as many of you here today know, about a third of all collisions occur when the drivers of the vehicles involved are being paid to drive. This figure is almost as high in already developed economies as it is in developing ones. Here in Britain and across the developed world, we've seen a huge growth in the use of light commercial vehicles, many used for home delivery. But too many of these, especially vans, are now involved in a disproportionate number of crashes. For over 15 years, I've been making awards to businesses and organizations whose well-thought-through policies and initiatives are countering this trend. Many of those businesses are well known. Companies in the energy sector have led the world in championing good practice, but many smaller businesses too have good policies in place, which I've been able to recognize through my road safety awards. Some of them have developed programs drawing attention to policies which assess the risks. Good practice in managing work-related road safety is not confined to the private sector. There are many public sector organizations which also see this as important. But there are still far too many organizations which employ drivers who don't properly understand the problem, so do little or nothing to address them. They need an incentive to help them take the necessary action. Driving for Better Business, initiated by RoadSafe, does just that. As many of you know, this is a program which shares good practice and demonstrates the significant benefits to business of managing road risk more effectively. This is a world first insofar as it's being delivered by a roads authority. I congratulate National Highways not just for embracing Driving for Better Business as a valuable way of engaging their business customers, but also for having created one of the world's most ambitious road safety programs. The team delivering Driving for Better Business deserves every success. I'm sorry not to be with you today, but I'm very pleased that this conference is being held, and I'm sure that it will provide a stimulus to advance the principles of good practice.